IoT is changing. It's a long-form sort of business model, and that you need to keep going and then figure out a model that gives you a little more scale and sort of hedges your bets a little bit. We definitely haven't figured it all out yet, but we know that long is clear. You got to go long.
A lot of the time, marketing and sales is overlooked. A lot of the time, distribution is overlooked. So go through every piece of the business from the day it started all the way to when you think it would exit, and plan every little step, because all it takes is one little one for the company to not do so well.
Just raise more money. I know it sounds so self-serving. Well, I think it comes down to, with all due respect to all the planning you can do and all the models you can follow, you're going to get it wrong. You're going to have to reiterate. You're going to have to reboot and start over. And what that means is time. And what money buys you is time, right? And there's two ways to extend that time. One is to have more money. The other is to burn less capital. You're a hardware startup. So I'm just going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're going to probably spend it. So I would just say raise more than you thought you would need and try and spend as little as possible. It sounds obvious.
I would say the same thing to hardware startups as I say to any startup, which is do as much customer development as you can before you start going too far on the product itself. You can actually figure out, I think mostly, if there's demand for your product before you really start working on the product itself. I mean, now we have pre-sale campaigns, obviously, and you can even do stuff before you do a Kickstarter. You can do test advertising on Facebook and see, does anybody click on this damn thing if I show this kind of widget with this message, or does everybody ignore it? If it's enterprise, you can go get hopefully 5 enterprise customers to say, yeah, we'll run a pilot on that if you in fact deliver it to us.
Most things that are worthwhile are difficult. So, I mean, all this can sound scary, but there are people, the fact that these types of events are happening all around the world, all of you are here doing this, means there's a group of people that want it to exist, that are willing to support and try. And we've seen it with some of our founders already, and it can happen quickly when you get that traction and starts working. You look back, and you certainly remember the bad times, but you're like, man, that was worth it.
A lot of the time, overseas labor has been stereotyped as being less in quality. That is actually not the case for manufacturing. So manufacturing experts actually, in fact, are better in Asia in every way. And I think it's part of the reason for that is because we as a country have lost most of our talent to Asia when it comes to manufacturing. So we do have talent, but most of them are probably 50 years old by now, and most of them have changed their careers by now. And all the state-of-the-art stuff is done overseas. So these days, I actually found myself going to China not because of the cost, but because of the superior process capability companies are able to provide over there instead of here.
We gotta think of sensors and hardware as a software delivery vehicle and a data delivery vehicle. And stop worrying about getting the thing pretty. Just get the data out there and make sure that when you deliver it, it's so seamless that I don't have to be trained in order to leverage the data that I'm getting from that hardware.
Find a co-founder as early as possible. I mean, many of you, I'm sure, have co-founders if you're entrepreneurs, but I think it's very hard to build a business for very long on your own. There's nobody to bounce ideas off of, there's nobody to call bullshit on you. And also, I think it's sometimes a signal that if you can't convince somebody to join you, that might be your first negative piece of feedback in customer development. And it's also a signal for investors. we see a lot of, for some reason in hardware especially, there's just more single founders than I've seen in any other category we've done. I haven't necessarily pinpointed why that is, but find a co-founder early. So, I mean, we've made this mistake as investors too many times where we fall in love with the product. The founders and we have not done customer development, and then, 18 months later when the product is finally built, we realize, wow, the demand for this isn't quite there. And then it's like, do you have time to pivot? Not unless you raised more money. So,